Today, we're diving into an action-packed thriller starring Denzel Washington, The Equalizer. Robert McCall, once a top CIA operative, grew weary of his violent past. To escape it, he faked his own death and disappeared, resurfacing in Boston for a fresh start. Now, he works a simple job at a large retail store. One day, he encounters an armed robbery. The cashier is trembling with fear. Robert calmly approaches and hands over the money as the robber demands. However, the robber then sets his sights on the cashier's ring. She instinctively refuses, explaining it's the only thing she has left from her mother. The robber doesn't care, and the situation is about to explode. Robert's eyes harden, but just as he's about to intervene, two children walk into the store. Not wanting to risk their safety, Robert stands down, but not before memorizing the distinct tattoos on the robber's neck and arm. He instructs his colleague to hand over the ring. The robber grabs it and makes a hasty escape. Robert immediately follows, noting the license plate before casually grabbing a hammer from the aisle. The next day, the cashier is shocked to find her ring back in the register. Robert, the silent guardian, had returned it. He wipes the hammer clean, puts it back on the shelf, and continues his workday as if nothing happened. Despite his fierce demeanor when dealing with criminals, Robert is exceptionally kind to his colleagues, often dancing to lighten the mood. After work, he frequently visits a diner to read, honoring his late wife who loved books. It is here he meets Teri, a young woman trapped in a life controlled by the Russian mob, longing to become a singer. Teri finds solace in talking to Robert, who treats her with respect and believes in her dream. One evening, Teri comes in for a drink but is called away by her boss, Slavi, to meet a client. Despite her exhaustion, she complies and leaves with a heavy-set man. Robert watches, troubled. The next evening, he brings Teri a cake but sees a bruise on her face. He encourages her to sit and talk. Teri shares her demo tape with Robert, seeking his feedback. Robert, smiling warmly, reassures her and encourages her to pursue her dreams. Teri feels a bit better about herself, touched by Robert's kindness. They talk for hours. On their way home, a car blocks their path. Slavi steps out and slaps Teri for causing trouble with the client. Robert, seeing the gun, holds back, helplessly watching Teri get taken away. Slavi mistakes Robert for a customer and hands him a card, offering better girls if he desires. Days pass without Teri showing up, worrying Robert. The diner owner informs him Teri is in the ICU after being beaten. At the hospital, seeing Teri's injuries fills Robert with guilt. Learning from Teri's friend that Slavi was responsible, Robert decides to help her. He visits Slavi's bar, offering $10,000 to buy Teri's freedom. Slavi mocks him, saying Teri earns that in a few days, refusing to let go of his cash cow. Robert, seeing negotiation fail, locks the door behind him, ready to exact justice. He surveys the room, identifying makeshift weapons. Activating his stopwatch, he launches into action. One thug approaches with a gun. Robert disarms and shoots him. He uses a wine glass to blind another, stabs a bald man with his own knife, and finishes the last one with a corkscrew. The fight ends in 28 seconds. Cleaning himself up, Robert leaves silently. The next day, he resumes his normal routine. The news reports the incident as gang violence, exactly as Robert anticipated. However, Robert didn't anticipate that Slavi's backers were actually the Russian Mafia. Slavi's death dealt a significant blow to their operations, causing chaos in Boston. Furious, the Mafia boss dispatched his trusted lieutenant, Teri, to investigate. Teri, meticulous and a former Special Forces operative, deduced from the crime scene photos that the perpetrator was highly trained. Unaware of the danger, Robert continued his routine but was surprised to learn that his colleague Ralph had abruptly quit. This seemed odd since Ralph had been working hard to become a security guard, with Robert's support in his weight loss and training efforts. Robert visited Ralph's home and discovered that Ralph's mother had missed paying protection money to two corrupt cops, resulting in their store being torched. As the only man in the house, Ralph had to stay to protect his mother. Robert secretly recorded the corrupt cops extorting money and threatened to expose them unless they returned all the money. Frightened, The cops complied the next day. Ralph resumed his job and finally became a mall security guard. Meanwhile, Teddy's investigation bore fruit. He discovered that Teri had disappeared after Slavy's death. Suspecting a connection, he found Teri's friend, who revealed Robert's existence. Teddy, ruthless as ever, killed the girl after extracting the information. Reviewing the surveillance footage, he saw Robert entering the bar but not leaving, indicating he was hiding something. Returning home, Robert heard a knock at the door, an unusual event since his retirement. It was Teddy, posing as a police officer, probing Robert about the recent murders at the bar. Prepared, Robert answered flawlessly, arousing no suspicion. Frustrated, Teddy showed a photo of Teri's friend, mentioning her sudden death and asking if Robert knew her. Robert's ambiguous reply confirmed Teddy's suspicions. Teddy then had Robert surveilled and investigated, but all records showed Robert as an ordinary man, deepening Teddy's mistrust. He ordered Robert's capture. Sensing the surveillance, Robert devised countermeasures. He went to the diner as usual, reading his book. Soon, a worker approached for a chat, but Robert instantly recognized him as Teddy's man. At that moment, Robert made his move. Hearing gunshots, Teddy's men rushed in, but Robert didn't flee. Instead, he launched a counterattack. Teddy, wary of creating a scene, refrained from direct confrontation and led his men to Robert's home, finding it empty. Every move was being monitored by Robert through cameras he had installed. He left misleading evidence of a planned departure, which Teddy saw through immediately. Hidden nearby, Robert realized Teddy's formidable nature. Desperate, Robert contacted a former CIA friend to dig into Teddy's background. The findings were alarming. Teddy was a top-tier Russian Special Forces operative who joined Pushkin, the Mafia boss, after the Soviet Union's collapse. Pushkin, controlling numerous illicit enterprises, used Teddy for problem-solving with extreme prejudice. Teddy's method was thorough elimination, sparing no one connected to his target. The Mafia's foothold in Boston was secured by local police corruption. Robert, now fully informed, was sleepless with worry about endangering his friends. He confided in a friend, saying, "If someone does something unforgivable and you have the power to change it, you must act." The friend's reassuring words reminded Robert of his unchanging resolve to fight injustice despite his wife's death. This renewed his determination. He first located the corrupt cop who had been aiding Pushkin's operations for years and knew many secrets. After a brutal beating, Robert shoved him into a car, trying to extract information about their local money laundering operation. Initially, the cop refused to talk, but Robert, anticipating this, had already connected an exhaust pipe to the car, trapping the man inside without fresh air. Faced with the threat of death, the cop eventually spilled everything. Robert followed the cop to the outskirts of the money laundering facility. The place appeared to be a slaughterhouse, but inside, it was the core of the operation. The floor was covered with cash, more than some small banks would have. The head guard, noticing Robert's unfamiliar face, became suspicious. In the face of danger, Robert remained calm, knowing he needed to take out the leader first. He quickly disarmed the guard and took control, efficiently neutralizing the threat. Before alerting the authorities, Robert ensured the workers received their wages and left the call to the police. When the police arrived and opened the freezer, they were shocked to find gang members tied up in piles of cash. Robert, using the evidence he had gathered, discovered more officials were involved. He anonymously sent this evidence to the FBI. He also found a shipment of oil that Pushkin was smuggling. Using the provided address, Robert went to the dock and blew up the cargo ship. The destruction of the factory and the cargo ship caused Pushkin significant losses. He issued an ultimatum to Teddy: kill Robert by dawn, or don't come back. However, Teddy couldn't find any trace of Robert, which left him frustrated. When he saw Ralph trailing Robert, an idea struck him. He captured all of Robert's co-workers, forcing Ralph to call Robert, threatening to kill everyone if he didn't show up within 30 minutes. Robert's worst fear had come true. Though it was a life-and-death situation, he knew he had to face it to save his innocent colleagues. Teddy had already set a trap, expecting Robert to walk right into it. But Teddy underestimated Robert. When Robert arrived, he was aware that his phone was being tracked. He cleverly diverted their attention, avoiding Teddy's attempt to shoot him on sight. Furious, Teddy ordered the immediate execution of a hostage. As the guards prepared to kill, the mall's music suddenly blared. This was part of Robert's plan, knowing they would head to the control room to shut it off. Ralph, being a security guard, was the perfect candidate to set the ambush. After completing the task, Robert hid the bodies of the enemies, using Ralph to lure and eliminate another foe, and then instructed Ralph to evacuate everyone through the back door while he stayed to face the enemies alone. Though Teddy had more men, Robert's familiarity with the mall's layout gave him an edge. He cut off the power and spread sand on the floor, knowing it would make the enemies lower their guard. As they looked down, Robert struck, eliminating them silently. When the remaining enemies approached cautiously, Robert took them out with precise shots. Teddy arrived just in time to shoot Robert in the arm, forcing him to hide temporarily. He pressed a hot metal can against his wound to stop the bleeding, not making a sound. He then used a flamethrower to scare off the enemies. As they retreated, Robert silently positioned himself behind them. Seeing his men being silently taken out, a large thug panicked and started shooting wildly at the walls. Seizing the opportunity, Robert quickly and accurately stabbed the thug in the shoulder. Despite the thug's resilience, Robert's swift strikes left no chance for recovery. The thug, though heavily injured, managed to throw Robert to the ground and began pummeling his legs. Grabbing a shard of glass, the thug prepared to finish Robert off. In a desperate move, Robert grabbed another piece of glass and thrust it into the thug's neck. At this moment, Ralph, worried about Robert, returned. As he helped Robert up, Ralph was shot in the leg. They quickly took cover behind a shelf, realizing their position was exposed. Robert instructed Ralph to reach the power box in 40 seconds to restore the mall's electricity while he distracted another enemy. Ralph ran, watching the clock, afraid to miss a second. As Teddy aimed to shoot Ralph, he managed to turn the power back on just in time. Hearing the commotion, Ralph hid in a room, locking the door and aiming his gun at the window. Soon, Teddy arrived, only to be shot with an air gun by Robert. What was expected to be an intense showdown turned into a one-sided fight. Teddy never understood who this man was, who single-handedly wiped them out. 3 days later, Robert arrived alone in Moscow. He knew that to end this, he had to eliminate Pushkin. Robert easily took out the guards and broke into Pushkin's home while he was bathing. As Pushkin heard the noise, Robert was already outside the door. Pushkin tried to bribe Robert with money, but Robert had no interest in wealth, only in taking his life. Instead of a direct kill, Robert filled the bathtub with water and electrified it as Pushkin approached to turn it off. With everything settled, Robert met Teri again. She looked transformed, free of heavy makeup, and had found a legitimate job, ready to start a new life. The Equalizer is a satisfying action thriller about one man's fight for justice. If you enjoyed this review, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. See you next time.